It happens to you guys. We're just going on. You don't want to make.
Wow. Yeah, made a lot of uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Family vacation.
Oh, yeah.
Period. And then things resolve and she was back. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, the system.
Yeah. Yeah. Not yet, no.
Get that? You will, you'll get it. It'll come to you.
You know, maybe
The interesting article in here is this one. This right here.
Take a look at it.
And our surveyors been pounding out because the.
It always makes me.
The data, it's not right.
Yeah, very.
Something's going on.
Yeah.
Here was where they had it originally.
Yeah.
Overly vegan, yeah, it's always.
I mean, that's where it was corrected.
Yeah.
On the old system.
Rachel got that.
Yeah.
She drove out at night.
Yeah.
And
Oh, no, the map had them. But.
ended up in Cromwell.
Oh, really?
Driving.
Hi, Kathy.
We, Monday night, we don't have to, at the lake over there, we seen them just for like 10 minutes.
Oh, really?
And then you know what, anybody that's gonna do any building or selling, you need those.
Got a survey.
Huh?
You got a survey, you gotta have the right
You've
spot.
gotta have accurate starting points. You can take that and read it.
Well, actually, no, that is, I think it's next to our green group or something, a pile.
Oh, yeah, it carries. That's why I brought them all. Right there. I get all my.
I heard. We were wondering if we got something the other day and Dave said, yep, it's coming because Josh is going today.
Thanks, Reese.
Oh, shoot.
I have a bunch of pictures, so I'll add that to those.
I never have. I don't know.
I know. That's what I said too. Challenge in these places too.
I know it's good, but we try to. I went to. Nine packs. Did you see? So. But it's expensive. I did. I never. This is probably a little less on the schools. Pine Tech was pretty good. Oh, really? Yeah, actually, I think it was.
Did you close it up?
No, we'll go up probably later September.
So that's pretty, people are using things.
Oh,
Dress up for those, you're off your way for that.
Excited for school.
Sarah actually started 2 weeks ago with her ESEO.
How many classes you taking?
She's
I
got
had to take the
three
old car
for
today
like
because the kids wanted to ride to school.
100 to 1. 200 to 1.
Some moment of the day. was- She had to get kids up the road.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, so she goes to school.
I was thinking. break
About
fees.
10:30.
Get back into the ground and Tyler. And I'd take time for in person. There he is. So she's like. Oh, shoot.
way cheaper.
Grabbing
Yeah,
a grading.
it's recyclable, what the heck, right? We even hazardous waste, get it out of there.
Did Suzanne tomorrow?
She's online.
Okay.
Teachers again this weekend, this shit.
What?
I think
Salt is.
it makes sense.
You know, some guys' land is right next to it, you know, there's a cabin or something. You're never gonna stop that. But the poor people, they're just too lazy to. Not all.
We've got a local contractor dumping hot water heaters and old furnaces in the ditch. It ain't poor people.
No, that's true, yeah. No, but every month it just. Right. You know, they just throw it away.
53 is the one.
So you can catch them.
I still think construction and work here.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, it is 10 o'clock. We will, before we call the meeting to order, just a reminder that we do have people online. I want to welcome everybody here. We have people, matter of fact, Susan Heinrichs from Extension will be giving a report for Extension online. So with that, we'll call the meeting to order and rise for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, welcome everybody. It is time for public forum. Is there anybody that wishes to speak at public forum? Yes. Reminder that you have 3 minutes, so you could step up to the,
I'd like, there's a page here with each of your names bookmark. You can pull a bookmark out. Pass it on, please. I want to be aware of what is actually, what the book that I'm actually talking about. And I'm going to apologize to the people who are here and the people who are listening and watching ahead of time. I mean, I don't mean to offend anybody, but book is. And when I looked in and read this piece of trash, I felt guilty because my tax dollars are supporting this pornography. It's perversion, obscenity, immoral, and a resource for pedophiles. Minnesota statute 617-291 contains an obscenity exemption statute, which is the statute that concerns sexual behavior, sexual content, anything that would have to do with that. And it allows pornography in public libraries and school libraries in the children's section. This sort of pornographic material should be in the X-rated section of an adult bookstore, not in libraries and schools. It's not perfectly normal. And that's the name of the book. It's perfectly normal. This material exposes impressionistic, tender young minds and souls to sexual corruption and deviant behavior. It's not perfectly normal. It undermines parental teachings of morality and modesty, which means it's not perfectly normal. This book discourages children from using crisis pregnancy centers because these centers do not promote abortion. This is a personal agenda and it's not perfectly normal. Do you want your 10-year-old coming home from the library and using words like pansexual or cisgender? It's written in this rag along with asexual, gender fluid, pansgender, binary, non-binary. No wonder kids are confused. This is not perfectly normal. This pornography shows naked people of all ages. It shows men with women, women with women, men with men in bed. It focuses on genitals and it includes pictures of male and female masturbation. It states on page 60, quote, there are different kinds of sexual intercourse, vaginal intercourse, oral intercourse, and anal intercourse. This certainly is not perfectly normal or decent reading, viewing material for minors. On page 62, I quote, there are other ways people make love and have sex. When a person puts their mouth on a vulva or a penis, this is called oral sex or oral intercourse. When an erect penis goes inside the anus, this is called anal sex or anal intercourse. This is absolutely not perfectly normal or meant for a child. Would this piece of pornography be perfect or perfectly normal for your grandchildren or your children? Decisions about what's perfectly normal should come from a caring, loving parent or guardian. You commissioners will be setting the preliminary levy this month. My tax dollars are being used to support ECRL. This has to change. Remove the pornography from the library or withhold funding provided by the taxpayers. I expect Pine County commissioners to take their position on this matter as a board of leaders, not followers.
Okay.
Remove this book and others like it that have been deemed obscene by the community. Are we so desensitized that we consider this material perfectly normal?
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Next.
My name is Reed Owens, and I would just like to thank Eileen for making that bold statement. I concur completely. And I would challenge our Board of Commissioners, representatives of Pine County taxpayers, whether or not you are willing or unwilling to finance pornography, to help fund it. The question is simple. It was well said many, many years ago. All it takes for evil to advance is for good men to do nothing. And to do nothing would be to say nothing. You're not the library board, but we send our dollars to the library board. Our dollars. You as our representatives have a voice in that. And you need to stand up for decency. What happens in San Francisco and New York City and Chicago need not happen in Pine County. I use these central regional libraries a lot. And so do my grandkids. I do not want them to be able to access that. Definition of a library is a place where literary, musical, artistic, or reference materials are stored for use, but not for sale. It would be better if it could be sold and gotten out of the library than being allowed to be reused and reused and reused. I have a granddaughter that was perped online by a predator in Canada. Years ago, in a previous life, I used to drive truck over the road. This kind of smut would be on the back shelves in a brown wrapper at those truck stops. And out in the parking lot would be those ladies who had descended into a life of prostitution, somebody's daughter, maybe somebody's mother. How did that start? There's always a starting point, and there's many different varieties, but pornography is always a part of it. We need to put a stop to it. It doesn't have to come into Pine County. It doesn't have to come into the East Central Regional Library by our commission of providing funds for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'm Kathy Horbach and a retired teacher now of health education. And this is the same topic. Definitely the book should not fall in the hands of a 10-year-old without parent supervision. And I know that our world is pushing towards a new normal, as in our government, try to make pedophiles legal and not illegal. And sometimes we might laugh at that or think that's never going to happen, but our world is pushing that direction. And so this kind of material, the libraries have lots of different resources, but this is not one that should come into the hands of a child that doesn't have any supervision. And I know we have a lot of kids that don't have families that are watching over them or taking care of them. And that's our responsibilities, is to be kind and to love those kids and families and encouraging them. So what I'm coming forward to say, there's a lot I don't know about this book, and there's not just that one book. There's probably another 8 or 10 that are floating around in there from the same authors, and they have a right to write this. But I also want to make sure that if these things are found in our library, that the other sides are what I see as normalcy also has a way to teach parents, how to teach their kids about sexuality and about when they get those ages, when they're menstruating and all those kinds of things, but then the relationship part too. And it really belongs in our family's hands, So I'm challenging myself to spend time. Are there more than one person on the board that represents the library? It's Terry. They'll spend some time with Terry to find out what the board is all about. And to also check with my schools, because I know our schools aren't affording libraries. I mean, they have books, but they don't have librarians. Not all of them. I'm going to check which ones do. I know they dismantled a lot in Hinckley. I don't know where that stands, but I know one that has no librarian and probably no updated books. And those are things that we could help them with. But anyway, I'm a concerned citizen. And I'm too have grandchildren that are in that 9-10 age. And there's no way that I would even present that material as high school students. You know, I was always very cautious and worked with the community that I was teaching in to make sure that we were not pushing anybody out, because kids would ask me, and they have parents that are both males or females. And, you know, at a certain age, those are okay things to talk about, you know, but it's not in my teaching order. When kids bring those things up, we talk and discuss and make it, you know, so people understand the different lifestyles that children are living in, and that we're anyway. So I just wanted to come forward and say that I have some research to do. I've been in the library now quite a bit since I've been retired, much more than even with my own children. And it's a wonderful place to be. But some of these things are maybe resources for people, but they shouldn't be in the hands of 10-year-olds, way too young. Or anyway, if you read the book, you'll understand. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm in opposition to this book. It's perfectly
What was
normal.
your name again?
My name is Dave Austinson from Hinckley. And you know, 2/3 of our 8th graders are not even proficient in math and reading. They score less than 35% on the percentile in school. And our schools, when we often measure our schools by our schools, or our school's better than this school or that school. Listen, the American schools are number 13 on the national percentile, world percentile. Okay, the top 20 countries I looked up, and we're number 13 in education. South Korea's, Japan, and those are better. But what is the goal of such a book? All it does is give perverted ideas to youngsters to carry out these perverted things. They're not old enough to have a family, right? As schools continue down this path of selling sex in school, that's basically what it's come down to in schools, sex and sports. There's very little education in our schools. As schools increase this type of education, it's going to end up with many rapes, boys going into girls' bathrooms. What do you think is going to happen when boys go into girls' bathrooms? Or locker rooms, or showers? What do you think is going to happen? And they're being taught this in this book, having sex out of marriage, increasing of pregnancies in the lower grades. You're going to have boys raping these girls, and it's going to be maybe one or gang rapes. Okay, what's going to happen? The girls are going to go unfinished in school because they're pregnant. There's going to be increase in venereal disease, AIDS, monkeypox, and other sexually transmitted diseases, let alone things like increasing in student shootings. And that's going to happen around here probably. Because when you have this type of education, there's no respect for the other person. There is absolutely no respect. You, as a boy, you want what you see, and you do what you want to do to get it, right? Boys get the urge through what they see, what they hear, what they read, and they want to get it. Anyone who is a Christian ought not to vote to accept this book anywhere. Don't think that teaching ought to be centered around the 5 core subjects like math and reading and spelling and history and science. I'm an educator. I do not allow sex education in our school, period. It doesn't exist, okay?
Your 3 minutes are passed.
Can I end? A class of men, and this is a quote from Byron Sunderland in 1863, a class of men without conscience and reckless of moral restraint have gained ascendancy in public favor and assume from their prominent position and to mold and direct the public sentiment of the nation. Their general influence upon the public morals has been like the wind of the desert, poisonous, withering, and destructive. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Deep breath. I'm trying to do this without tears. Name is Bobby Butler. I am a parent of a child who was caught in a sex ring. And this garbage that you're looking at, that we're looking at putting in the thing, is exactly the type of tool that a pedophile is going to use to get to our children. It destroyed his life. He went on to molest other children. In the midst of all of it, we lost our housing. This is garbage. This is a tool that is going to destroy many families. And I beg you to please, please don't fund it. That's all I can say at this point, but it will destroy lives. It is a very powerful tool that will be used to hurt many. That's all I can say.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would like to comment.
Yeah, we don't discuss, usually it's not on the agenda, so if you want to make a comment.
I would make a comment. Yeah, we did talk about this months ago. And I even said, why are we funding this? It looks like things just take time to get resolved. If I could make a motion, I'd make a motion right now to not fund. I also understood when I checked into this is not allowed in a prison library. Did anybody research that? And that's funded. That's also funded.
It wouldn't be in our jail either.
It wouldn't be in the jail. I'm not saying burn books. I'm not saying ban books. Okay. But if I were, it'd be one of them. It'd be one of them. But you can get it on Amazon. I don't know why we would have to fund this. And we did bring it up months ago and we did discuss it. And unfortunately, things operate at a snail's pace in government. I wish that would change also. If as a store owner, as a business owner, you can make decisions quickly and you can change like that and fix it and then worry about it after. So that's where I stand. I don't know where it is appropriate to make a motion to immediately recognize that we're no longer going to fund them. I brought it up months ago. I see in the minutes that Jeff Nelson is reviewing it. He did. I would think not to bring you in it, but I will. If you were to go respond to a crime towards a child, and as you were there investigating people, if this were laying out open like this, I don't know if the cameras are on, but if this was laying out, would you take this as evidence?
Yes.
In a crime against children?
Well, it'd be evident.
It would be evidence.
Yeah.
So can I say, I'm on the ad hoc committee for this, and we will be discussing it later when we're doing our board minutes and the meetings that we've attended. And so this will be talked about at that point in time. And where we should go. So.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
We'll move on to the agenda. One slight change, and that's the correction to the canvassing board minutes. Yeah, any other?
I'll make a motion. I'll second. You're on the board. It's been long enough.
Let's get it on the agenda.
So today, it's been long enough. We talked about this months ago.
I know, but today we.
So do we want to add this to the agenda for later in the meeting?
This, I could,
I would rather wait till you sit on that committee.
That's my name's Matt. Yeah, thank you.
Speak up.
Do we have a motion for the agenda?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Lovegren, seconded by Ludwig. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're looking for approval of the minutes of the August 16th regular county board meeting and summary for publication. In the minutes of the August 23rd special meeting of the committee of the whole for budget, and minutes of the August 30th special meeting.
Ludwig will move. I'll second.
Motion by Ludwig, second by Moore. Any discussion?
Yeah, I would if I could, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I guess that's where I'd like to recognize that Sheriff Nelson has had that book in his possession to review it. I just haven't heard anything back yet on what his findings were, what his opinion was on. It was in the minutes.
later? Do we want?
Yeah, let's do it during the, your
Yeah,
report.
so that's properly marked in the minutes that he's had it in his possession.
Yeah.
The book.
Yes.
Any other discussion, questions? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes of and reports of boards and correspondence, Pine County Surveyor's Monthly Report for August. Pine County Zoning Board minutes of June 23rd, 2022 and July 28th, 2022. The primary canvassing board minutes from August 11th, 22, and letter from Wadena County Property Tax Disparity. That's
I'll
it.
move, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
Motion by Ludwig, second by Lovegren. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yep.
Just some recognition on the public land survey that was
Yep.
was in front of the legislature this year. It didn't get any traction, but it's something we should keep on our maybe
Yes.
platform as we go forward, just because I know our surveyors strongly supports it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We were in a meeting a while ago and they had said that Pine County, so kudos to Rob, and this is a pat on his back, that we are way ahead of a lot of the other counties on that. And so I think, and we do need to keep it moving.
Yeah, we're a big
Yeah.
county and we need those,
been
we
doing-
need those references out on that.
He's doing a really good job.
I think we have to thank the previous board from 20-some years ago to
Yeah.
recognize the fact that we need a county surveyor. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You've had the consent agenda in front of you for several days.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Got a motion by Lovegren, seconded by Moore. For the consent agenda, is there any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we get to the fun part of the agenda. We have a couple of people that have worked for Pine County for 32 and 36 years or 30.
Quite a while. I'll have Larry and Heidi kind of step up here if that's okay, and
Go ahead,
address the
Ron.
board. So, Mr. Chair and members of the board, I'd like to recognize Larry and Heidi Pagonis on their retirement. Together, they've proudly served the citizens of Pine County and their community for a combined 70 years. This team exemplifies what it is to be dedicated and professional with an upbeat can-do attitude 100% of the time. Attributes that are rarely found in one person, yet it's embodied in both of them. For those of you that don't know Larry and Heidi, they are a very unique team, and that's why I wish to recognize their retirement with the county at the same time. They've been married for nearly 46 years. They both have experienced a lot in the sheriff's office, and I could not imagine working in this line of work for as long as they have, going home together and every day only to share how their day went. Let's just say there's some experiences in this job that are best not relived. You two set an example, an amazing example of what a strong, healthy marriage and teamwork is all about. So just a little history. Larry started with sheriff's office back in December of 1985 as a jailer. And Heidi started with the sheriff's office in the summer of 88 as a part-time jail matron. Back then, the jailer did it all with much less technology than what's provided today. Larry had to actually use a typewriter to do a booking, and every door had to be opened by hand with a key, and you were armed with nothing more than your intellect, your communication skills, and a radio. You relied heavily on your fellow jailer to immediately back you up when things went south. The jail matron, Heidi, filled a very tough position as well. She had to work without a schedule and be on call day and night, responding to the jail on a moment's notice to maybe pat search, strip search a female, assist medical staff with combing out lice and lice-filled hair, or cleaning a cell. Heidi provided added security on countless jail transports and worked court security as a bailiff during trials when needed. You name it, and it was asked of the jail matron. Heidi did all of this and more without complaint and with a professional, positive attitude. She would make personal plans around key times in the jail in order to make herself available just in case she got that call, and then drop everything to come in on a moment's notice. Here's an example of a lost attribute many people in today's work world will never understand. And Heidi did this for 34 years. For the last 13 plus years, while in the new jail facility here, Larry and Heidi primarily took care of inmate transports, taking inmates to medical appointments, dentists, hospitals, back and forth from the county jails and prisons. This duo has logged well over 1 million miles, and yes, in the same car together. We all recognize Larry did most of the driving, but we all know Heidi told him where to go. Larry and Heidi, I, as well as the entire staff of the Pine County Sheriff's Office, want to sincerely thank you for all you have done over the years for the citizens of Pine County and the Sheriff's Office. You both are an inspiration to us all in your character, your work ethic, your dedication to serving people. Have fun, relax, do some fishing, enjoy spending time with those grandkids, and maybe take the time to go on a trip and let someone else transport you around. You've most definitely earned it. Thank you. Larry. Oh, you don't want me in there.
You know, can I add to that?
You're not done yet.
Now I believe you're not done yet. Yeah.
So I have to say that being an employee here for as long as I've been an employee here, you two were always a bright spot in the day. And so when we'd see your car pull in, I would always have to go look because you always had those amazing smiles on your faces. And you were such a joy just to see and say hi to. And so as just somebody who worked here, we saw what you gave all the time. And so thank you so much for everything you did and do.
We're not done yet. We got the gold watch, you know. If you want to come up, oh, sure. But Larry and Heidi have known you for. I live there now, but I appreciate everything you've done. And you know, the advantage we have when we started having board meetings. Many times we sit here and we see the cars that you're taking somebody to a hearing. And they lean over and where do they come from? How do you work that? And you were back here in time for the board meeting and then you see. They got the guy back more and last.
You should have.
Thank you, babe.
Awesome.
Larry, I just got I was thinking this morning, I'm driving in here. It can't be 30 some years. You used to deliver when we were remodeling our house. Waiting on me at the co-op, so. The lumber yard.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy.
Yeah, enjoy. Okay, we've got a couple of presentations on our budget. Suzanne, are you ready for yours?
I am. Good morning. It's always a pleasure to be here with this county board. What a great thing to follow, longevity in employees. So that's wonderful. For the gallery who is here, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Suzanne Henricks. I'm a regional director with University of Minnesota Extension. And Pine County is one of the counties that I get to work with as a regional director, and I'm a department head. So that's why I get to present the budget today. I'm wondering, Ryan, if it's possible for me to share my screen. Should I just go ahead and try it? Yeah, it's working. Okay, so I have a few slides. Before I get into the budget, I just want to just remind everyone about what Extension does. So this board is very familiar with Extension's work, so I'll just quickly go through it. The mission for University of Minnesota Extension is to make a difference by connecting community needs and university resources to address critical issues in Minnesota. And so that really is an important mission, and it's for all county residents. We've been doing this since 1909 when county extension offices came to be. So across the state, there's a county extension office in every single county. And Pine County is no different. It's a vibrant place, lots and lots of people learning, and lots of questions come in. Many of those questions relate to this educational model. And as we do our work, education is primary. Most of our learners are adult learners, and we have a lot of people that connect with the extension office to ask questions. Much of our question and answer period starts in the spring when people are starting to plant gardens. So a lot of questions about soil come in, lots of questions about gardening. As summer goes on, lots of questions come in about insects and things that happen as people are farming or as they're gardening. And then it turns into fall questions of harvest. So we receive a lot of different questions throughout the year, all related to things that happen at your home or in your backyard or at your farm. So a lot of those questions are related. This model demonstrates how we kind of do our work. We're the land grant university in Minnesota. And so Extension's job is to extend that knowledge out to county residents. And we base our programs on the research that's being done at the university and education that's being taught. At the same time, though, we're working with consumers and with county residents, people who really know what they're working on, or who know their community, who know what their questions are, what they've experienced, and what they're looking for. So that's the golden area, is that when we're working with people in counties, it's bringing university resources to bear on community issues or problems. So that's kind of where we sit within the county. It's been a joy just this last few months to bring on board some new staff members. We had some resignations or retirements, and we are fully staffed with the people listed here. So the County Extension Office Assistant, Roxanne Orvis, she's the person that is probably the front line who receives a lot of those inquiries that we just talked about. And then she kind of triages them to folks. Then we have Terry Samla, who is the Master Gardener Coordinator. He runs and works with a group of volunteers in the county. Sarah Odendahl is the new county 4-H educator. Katie Hagan is the new county ag educator. And then Kristen Riley works with the health and nutrition program called SNAP Ed. And I will just say, it has been a true joy. Some of these folks are returning to Pine County after having grown up there or have lived there and are now putting their expertise into teaching folks about their specific subject area. And they're now living in Pine County. So it's so exciting to be a part of that. A couple of things that before I get into the budget request is just about SNAP Ed. Kristen, she provides hands-on nutrition education for kids and for families. She also works with cafeterias. A lot of times school lunchrooms are looking at new ways of doing things or incorporating some healthier opportunities in. And so she's working on something called smarter lunchrooms. And then also she works with childcare providers to provide them with educational resources as well. She also partners a lot with food shelves. So this is work that her predecessor, Jimmy Johnson, had started. And she's also working with food shelves just to bring them resources and things that they might not have known about otherwise. I mentioned the Master Gardener program. There are numerous volunteers in the Master Gardener program in Pine County who are doing really valuable work. They provide a lot of workshops and they do educational opportunities, but they're also at fairs and other outreach events answering people's questions. And so they do a lot of horticulture type questions and education. And they're all volunteers, and this is their set of priorities. Volunteers in the Master Gardener program focus on these priorities when they're planning their educational efforts. So they might be focused on how to grow local foods, how to grow your own foods and to preserve them. They might be focused on nearby nature, how to work with a city or another entity to create a new park or to revitalize a park. They might be working on pollinators. And so that's been a big focus for the Pine County volunteers in the Master Gardener program. They really incorporate the health of pollinators into almost everything that they do. That's been an overarching goal of theirs. And then I'll just touch on with Katie Hagan taking on the new role or the role of agriculture educator. She is focused on providing resources that are relevant to Pine County farmers. And so she's doing a lot of good outreach right now. She's planning some workshops that have been asked for, and she's really responding in really great ways. And she's also looking at how can she help farmers know about alternative crops and other things. And then we have 4-H program, and the 4-H provides positive educational opportunities for youth. We know that all people, even youth during COVID, really felt isolated, and 4-H provides a place for youth to belong. And belonging comes in many different ways. You could feel belonged to by a gang or something really negative. That's youth development in a bad way. We provide positive youth development, helping kids find their thing, exploring projects, working with caring adults and youth. So youth are finding their place in Pine County 4-H, which is great. And I just wanted to include this slide that a lot of times the magic with 4-H is not necessarily the 4-H educator or even the adult volunteers who are working with 4-H, but it's the other youth in 4-H who are teaching the younger youth something. They might be modeling something or showing them a leadership activity or just a game. All of that provides that older youth an opportunity to learn how to expand their leadership opportunity, and then the younger youth to learn. This is the 4-H model, experiential learning by doing. It really is a full circle, and this is highlighted as 4-H does their programs. Experience the activity, whatever the activity is. Talk about it, share it, somehow process it, and then maybe change or recognize that you need to add something the next time you do it, and then go back to number one again and experience it again. So I just wanted to include that. We often don't show that. It's a really great model, and I wanted to make sure that you saw it. So so any comments before I just dive into this last slide? Okay, I'll just keep going since I can't see you as if I was in person. I just wanted to give that opportunity. So the county extension budget request is in front of you, and the total amount of that request is $160,953. It's a 2.89% increase over last year, only because of personnel. Nothing other than that. There's a slight increase in the wage for both the Master Gardener Coordinator and our summer 4-H intern. We found that the intern wage was a little bit low last year at $13 an hour, competing against other places. And we want to make sure that that's a competitive wage. So we're asking to increase that. And then I see I have a final bullet on this slide that has something, I don't know. So ignore that F at the bottom, but the 4-H educator and the ag educator both fall under the memorandum of agreement, and that has a 2.25% increase in it. So that is, it's a simple budget request this year. There's not much difference in that budget, and I just wanted to be able to have some time to present that with you. So I don't know if you have any questions.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I could just make a note, the spreadsheet that was in the packet is a couple $1,000s more than the request that Suzanne just presented. We just had a little cross-wired and didn't get the right handout in the packet. So if you look at the Master Gardener and the 4-H summer intern, there's a couple $1,000s extra in what's in your packet than Suzanne is actually requesting. So if you wonder why the number didn't match what she said, that's it.
Thank you for bringing that up, David. Actually, I think it's Kelly's magic. She has probably rechecked my addition. And so the number that you have in your budget packet is the right one. So,
And just for a reminder that memorandum of agreement is between the counties and the University of Minnesota.
that's correct.
So
It
that
is.
Each individual that we have working here may or may not fit above or below the University of Minnesota salary schedule, but we pay into this pool, and they actually get their paycheck from University of Minnesota. So it's a true partnership. It's their arm into Pine County. Suzanne, if I could just say, these people that we have working in Pine County are out and about all the time. You can't go to any gathering of people that have anything to do with a garden and not see Terry.
Right.
He's there, and he's very focused on what he does. Someday I think he might fully retire, but we'll worry about that later. He still enjoys what he does, you can tell. And Katie, I ran into Katie. I went to Cattlemen's Association meeting a couple of weeks ago, and they had a farm tour east of Hinckley, and Katie was there. And I guess I didn't put 2 and 2 together until I saw her, but she is Dwayne Claire's daughter.
Yep.
Grew up in Hinckley, just down the road from Terry. She's grew up on a beef farm. She's a homegrown farm girl. And so it's great to see that. Katie Odendahl grew up, you could almost see her house if you stood on the courthouse roof up here on the way to Baroon on Homestead Road. She's been a delight since we've had her. She is energetic. She's been with the 4-H program for a few years in another county and is delighted to be back home. So thanks, Suzanne. You made a couple of really good hires, I think, so.
I think so too. And I appreciate those of you on the county board, along with the county extension committee, who served on the search committees for those hires. Yeah, I agree with you. Really good hires. And Katie had, so from that Tri-County Cattlemen's farm tour, there were a couple of questions that came up, maybe in conversations with farmers that she had. She does not let grass grow under her feet. She's already planning a workshop and she's already responded with whatever it was that one farmer wanted. So there's no grass growing under her feet, that's for sure.
Can I add, Mr. Chair?
Yes. Yep.
Thursday, I am very excited to participate with Jan in a meeting with the Mille Lacs Band for our new 4-H person. So that's moving forward
Good.
and it's very
Thank you.
exciting. So yeah, it's fun seeing the growth that's going on.
That's
I
excellent.
had Suzanne, Terry, if you're done, but
Yep.
you know, I mean, it is not just some made up number, but 4-H kids are 3 times as likely to be involved in the community. It's a lifelong experience. So that's why we're excited to try to get to some kids that we haven't been able to get to before and get them involved and experience the 4-H. And there are so many things other than raising up a steer and going to the state fair, which is very, very exciting for those people. But there are so many other lifelong lessons that they get out of 4-H.
That is the truth too. Yeah, I know that Sarah is excited about all opportunities that are coming her way. Everywhere she looks, there's an opportunity with 4-H. And like you said, Terry, now this new opportunity with Mille Lacs Band to kind of grow that. Reaching kids where they are is really important. 4-H has had a lot of success with families bringing kids to 4-H events. That still continues. There's a sector of kids that we miss with that. We need to bring 4-H to where they are. And I'm excited to be able to do that as well. So yeah, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Lovegren, for going to that.
Exciting.
Any other questions of Suzanne? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your support and thanks for this option of virtual.
Yes. And that memorandum of agreement is usually negotiated during the AMC fall conference in December. And so that's usually where they hammer out the agreement.
And it's now just done every 3 years. So I think it'll be a couple years before we
Right.
have it on the agenda again.
All right.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Have a good day.
You too.
So Pine County Historical Society.
Hi, I'm Tony Niswa. Suzanne's a hard act to follow and I don't have, I have no presentation, but I just want to mention that we have a museum in Askov, Minnesota. It's about a 50,000 square foot museum. Larry is the president. He'll be presenting the financial. Just wanted to let everyone know that it is primarily run by volunteers. We have a couple of paid positions, but it's a great museum. We have around 30-ish volunteers. Aging population. So we're always looking for more volunteers if anyone wants to come out, but it's a great museum. It contains all the artifacts that are historically significant to Pine County and has so many interesting artifacts in it. We are currently creating a new machinery hill. Out back, we were just donated a whole bunch of farm machinery. We have an airplane back there. We have a caboose back there. Inside, we have just added a new aviation room that has a replica of the Wright Flyer, an exact replica of the Wright Flyer, a gyrocopter, and a new medicine wagon. And our accessions team is constantly improving the materials within the museum, changing out artifacts that we have. So a lot of people think you go to a museum, well, I don't need to go back there because I've seen everything. And what we're trying to do is something like the Smithsonian. We're constantly rotating our inventory. So come and visit us because it's a wonderful museum and it's actually a pretty big museum for a small town facility. So I really, really encourage anyone to come and bring your kids. Beautiful restaurant there that serves really good food. So come and enjoy a couple hours in the museum. I think you'll really like it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
I'm Larry Helwig, president is my associate and good friend, Tony Niswag has mentioned. We don't have a plan, or we do have a plan. I came here with a speech that I thought I would could work. But as I hear the issues in the open forum here, I have a perfect solution. We could take that budget that you're giving to this pornography and give it to the museum. And I think if each and every one of you would have that option, I think you have the moral character to actually do that. But I understand there's a process. And unfortunately, that process doesn't always work towards the people who would like, well, that people that like US citizens here that have the character and the wherewithal to take care of things. I know most of you here and I know you would do it if you could. But I certainly echo their concerns back here. That's pretty terrible. And I have heard rumors of it, but didn't realize how in-depth it was. So with that, I'm going to present my budget and I've already got your solution. So that should be easy. As you as you see, we've kind of had to lean a little bit harder on the county appropriations because we've had obviously more increases in our budgeting than the year before. But here's the good news. This is one of the paid positions that we have, our executive director. She's actually a volunteer because she donated almost 90% of her salary last year back to the museum, which enabled us to put our lighting in the big gym, to floodlight the right flyer and things like that she talked about on her own accord. There was no pressure at all. And so that's the kind of people that we have there at the museum for the right reason at the right time. Obviously, they change, and we're going to have a change in the treasurers. She probably leaned on her husband, John Niswag, to be our treasurer, even though he didn't want to. And he has done a phenomenal job over the last year rather, but next year he'd like to do some other fun things. So we are asking to fund a position for a treasurer because it's very hard to find a full volunteer like we did with John. It gets harder every day. So we've asked to increase to have a line number for a treasurer. We have a person in mind named Cindy Walker. Maybe some of I think that's the right name that some of you may know. And I think she will do a fine job. So we do need a little extra funding there. Good news is, and this seems counter to what we should be doing, but we have managed to actually decrease by a lot the amount of energy that we consume and therefore the prices of that through LED, through the Minnesota Power, through D&E, some other folks that volunteer and give us things that are no one would have thought of. For example, no one thought we would get a chance to dehumidify and to cool our cafe because it's just huge. And yet Minnesota Power gave us the unit, D&E installed it, and we had some electricians expenses, but that was it. I don't know where that came from, but we're delighted that it has. I think we know what we're like. We're a Christian-based environment there, and we believe that good things happen when you have that kind of faith. The other eyesore that we've had in the back there is a transformer that looked like it was going to fall over at any time. Well, it's gone. And again, Minnesota Power did it. And another company, electrical company is doing everything inside. And it's all being funded by Minnesota Power. I think, I don't know how that happened either. I know wheels of people have started the wheels in motion in the past. I only kind of greased the wheels a few times maybe, but the point is, that is a phenomenal place and it's being supported by not only you and the money that you give to us, but other people, and we're using it appropriately and we can withstand any kind of audits you would ever give us. We have good people there and we'd like to continue with it. It's growing, as Tony has said, it's growing. We face challenges, but there's nothing you can't do without a little money, is there? And we would like you to look at our budget and support our budget. We appreciate it very much. And thank you for the opportunity to get rescheduled. Both of us had family issues that precluded us to being the normal one, but Dave here managed to get us in and we're glad to be here. This is a fine place and Tony told you all about it. So with that, thank you very much. And I'm very hopeful that issues that were brought forward get resolved. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks. Don't sit down yet, no. You can answer from sitting down, but I do have a couple of questions.
Questions?
Just a
Let's
couple
see.
of
I got the answers right here.
Okay. Do you keep like how many displays, things do you have on display
Oh.
at any one time? Do you have any idea?
That's awesome.
We've got thousands and thousands.
Yeah.
of plays that we've got. As I said, it's about a 50
Been through this?
square foot facility.
Yeah.
And every room is jam packed.
Oh, it is. And I, every day I walk through it, just about every day. And it seems like even as much time as I am there, there's always items that you have not actually looked at and seen before. I go with people when they come to visit the museum, and they are just amazed. There has been no negative feedback from any area in the last several years. And I challenge one item in particular. Is one guy says, anything you don't know what it is? I says, yeah, right there. And I pointed to him, what is this? We still ain't figured it out. And neither has he. But we just cannot imagine. I guess someday I'll have to ask sessions people how many they have logged into their computer. That's the only way I would know, but it's a huge number.
And then my other question is, roughly how many visitors do you have in a year?
That's
Again, I should have done my homework. Last month, we had a huge,
Yeah.
And again, I say this is a small town museum, but we had a huge number of people come through. And I want to say it was upwards of about between 60 and 80 people. Now that seems small, if I compare it to the Science Museum in St. Paul or whatever, but for here it's big. And I would say that we average, 10 to 25 per month. Of course, in the winter it goes down, summer it goes up a little bit, but it's quite a bit for a small museum.
I think she's accurate on that. Though I have to say at Rutabaga Days in Ascov, I don't know if you went there, it rained. We got a lot of visitors in there then, until the rain quit. But yeah, it varies, but they're so appreciative, so enamored at how extensive that museum has become. Everyone says, if they aren't a member, I got to come back. Every time we have a contractor come in there that never has been there, he says, I got to bring my family here. This is awesome. That's all I can say with it. It is a great.
It is really awesome.
It is.
It's a great tribute to Pine County, and to think that even the railroad layout and the Wright Flyer would be in a small town of Ascov to support Pine County is amazing. And I don't know how we've got to that point. I really don't. But it is certainly with financial funding.
Well, thanks.
That'd be the trash.
Thank you much.
Thanks, Larry.
So I don't know if where we want to go with the budget discussion, but time is ticking, you know, we've got what, 20 some, do we have 20 days yet?
We have until the end of September to adopt a preliminary levy.
And I want to remind, I think we all know this, our philosophy is kind of to get as close to where we're gonna end up as we can with preliminary. I know we've done it before where we don't have every single line item done, but we have a number that we're gonna shoot for. And I think everybody that works here would like us to have every line item solved, but I think they can live through that if we get close. We can't just say, okay, here's a number and you guys figure it out. I don't think that's fair to our department heads, but you got any words of wisdom, David?
Well, of course, it's only bad news. From Suzanne's presentation, we were able to actually save a couple of $1,000s from what was in your packet. The museum's presentation is a $5,000 increase that did not get picked up in the IFS run. So that's going to put us a little bit the wrong way if you fund 100% of their request of $30,000. Last year it was 25, or this year it's 25,000. So just as you're doing your mental arithmetic. But yeah, as Steve was saying, the individual line items, they're going to kind of change up until Kelly says we're done, you know, the budget's final, because we'll have staff turnover, we'll get insurance elections from employees that may match what we had thought or maybe different than what we thought. But in big terms, we're about 1.7 million apart. We have a gap. So Kelly and I have been scratching our heads thinking that it's a three-pronged approach, right? There's some levy that comes into play, there are cuts that come into play, and there's ARPA money that comes into play to balance the budget. And so to the extent that you can have thought or give, you know, share your thoughts or hopes on where we end up or how you would like those three pieces emphasized or not emphasized, or other pieces, maybe there's a fourth leg of the stool and we'll have an actual chair if you know, that you want to bring to the table. So that's what I'm looking for. If you're, you know, today is just an opportunity to give us some direction to come back on the next meeting is at the 20th with a proposed levy that you can adopt or decide that you want to call a special meeting for later in September. Is that helpful at all?
Yeah, I think, and I've thought much of, is this what we think about this time of year? The three-legged approach. And I think there's some money that people put in their budget requests that also has a line item in our ARPA funding. So have we trued that up yet?
There's about $120,000 in ARPA for sheriff's office staffing that is in essence duplicated in the budget request. And the new employee request is more than 120. It's probably 170.
I think 180.
230. So if we true that up, that 1.7 becomes 1.6, 1.58.
I mean, if it was, in my mind, if we got in 1.5 million, and if we just simply do the simple math.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. We do, you know, we do a third with levy, we do a third cuts and we do a third with ARPA, and I don't know if there's enough ARPA money to do it. I mean, that's a start.
Yeah. So when you say a third,
Well,
That's-
I was
$500,000 to $600,000.
I don't know if
Yeah.
that's even doable.
I agree. You talking about the stuff we've committed and not spent. I mean, it's not, I mean, we had placeholders, put it that way.
When you say a third, the third that seems hardest is the cuts.
Yeah.
In my mind, and Kelly, I don't know if you're hanging out back there because you don't want to participate, or if you, because I assume if you had it, anything, yeah. No, I think coming up, we could. I mean, that's. And that, and a third, so that would be less than a 3% levy.
I just threw that out there because it was simple math in my
Yeah.
head. And so at this point, I'm thinking of simple.
Yep. Oh, no, and I get that, and I'm,
And if it gets a little bit different, but at least I think departments and staff has. I don't know where you guys are from, but I think we're gonna have to make cuts. We're gonna have to dip into that ARPA fund. Because I don't think we're ready to do a.
Well, Mr. Chair, yeah, I agree. Ultimately, when we raise people's taxes, there's gonna be a lot of people that are gonna have to cut something,
Yeah,
pay for something. So yeah, I'm heavily leaning to, cuts in ARPA.
Inflation's going this year either.
Oh,
It could be a tough year.
It's gonna be a really tough year in the next year. It's tough now.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's tough to cut here, but everybody's taxes go up, are gonna have to cut to pay.
We're gonna be sitting around a table hammering that out next meeting.
Kelly, do you have some words of wisdom for us?
I like your words of wisdom, Steve, to look at the 1/3, the 1/3. Because if, I always look at it when we have this huge spread, this huge deficit, I always look at it and go, oh, I have to find that many cuts. And there's no rock to look under. But if you give me that I only need to look under and find a third of it, it seems a lot more attainable.
And maybe you have to find 40% of it. Or,
Oh,
you know,
Steve.
because I'm just saying,
Well-
it might not be as simple as just dividing it.
Yeah,
in
and
three pieces.
I would say with confidence, now that Kelly's standing up there, we could find a third in cuts. You might not like the cuts,
Yeah.
right? And a significant amount of that gap is being pushed by public safety and public safety new positions, right?
Right,
So if you would have preferences, right, on the cuts, it's helpful to know those. But in my mind, it's hard to get to that $500,000 if that's the target, right, the third, without hitting public safety hard, because that's where that's 60 to 70% of the general fund spending.
but the cuts aren't cuts like we would think of cuts. The cuts are for new requests.
There would be some of that, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, because everything where that number has everybody's asks in it, right? The growth.
Except for the 5.
But yeah, except Larry's 5,000.
Yeah,
And yeah,
I mean, I think if we walk away from today and maybe I'm way off on the third, but we'll see how close we can get. And maybe we can get there, maybe we can't, maybe then we're gonna have to say, well, this position is sacred to us. We're not gonna we're not gonna eliminate that position. I think that till we're faced with those cuts, we're not gonna make them. You know,
Mr. Chair.
yeah.
When is are we having another, are we scheduling another COW or?
Oh, go ahead. I was just gonna say, I think you can make that decision in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Right? We'll come back for the next board meeting. What I'm, based on what I've heard so far, is we would come back to the next board meeting with a budget that balanced using a third rough framework, right? It's not gonna be to the decimal place, right? But generally trying to use all three of those approaches. And then you would have an opportunity to say, it's kind of getting to what I can support, or David, you did not hear what I said. You missed the boat. Here's what I want to see.
Yeah,
And you
options.
may, I mean, legitimately, right? You may see some new stuff and go, oh, that's triggered some thoughts. Here's some other ideas, right? So, and that's all positive. But I think today is your opportunity to kind of help us formulate some budget that we could present back that said, here's a proposal that balances with these assumptions.
Are you also gonna do a scenario with a 0% increase? Is that one of your pencil and numbers?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
I would say if the commissioners want to see a two-legged stool, right? Then we would do that, but I hadn't heard that yet from commissioners.
I would like to see that. We would have to prop the stool up against the wall for a few years, so things.
The problem, JJ, it's, we've been down that road before. And, if you kick the can down the road, and you do a 0, even, and we did that for a few years. Then we get to the point where we're not buying squad cars and we're not keeping up. We're not buying tires for dump trucks, and we just get behind because it's like everything else. And then, you know, I think back to those years, had we just done 1%.
Yeah, and
we would have been much better ahead than we were. And then we had to really try to catch up, and you know what it's like to play catch up.
Yeah, I agree. I just see this uniqueness of this, the ARPA money, and I have the list, we all have the list of what is allocated, what hasn't been spent, and what's available. And as much as we ask our state why they're sitting on, how much is it now? 9 billion? And still nothing is getting done there. I mean, if we
given us cuts, I mean, that's the part that irks me more than anything.
What's unique is that money is that's sitting there that is still not used for something, and I would just assume use it to help everybody right now in these tough times than sitting there. So yes, I still would like to see it. Call it a two-legged stool, call it a whatever you call it, it's still numbers and monies and just jockeying things around to make things work. Because people are gonna have to cut. Their taxes go up. It's tough times.
So I do want to mention though, if you did a 0%, if you did a -5, people's taxes are still gonna go up.
Some people's tax.
Yes.
Correct.
So I just want to make sure, I mean, it doesn't always work.
It was ironic that 3 or 4 years we did 0%. My taxes went up. The year we did a 5 or 6 to try to catch up, mine went down. It's because it is such a complicated formula that we're working on the average. The thing we do know is there has been new construction that would 1% roughly. So if everything was equal and everybody's taxes went up exactly the same, we know we could do 1% without changing anybody. We know that's impossible. But that's the bottom line.
Yeah, and if you have this sheet still, this is always just
Yeah.
fascinating to look at, but no matter what you do, more than likely, commercial property is gonna see a reduction. And so just looking down the list, Josh's commercial property with a 0 levy increase, and this is all preliminary numbers, so, but they're, they're close, right? Would see a $330 decrease, and if you did a 6% increase, Josh, you'd still see a $245 reduction on your commercial property. JJ's would be a 580 savings at 0 and a 402 savings at 6%. So that's where I think Kelly's point is you can do a 0 levy. Some people will pay more or less. You can do a 6% levy. Some people will pay less because of all the factors that go in. And I don't know, I don't know if there's any improvements in either of your places from year to year.
Look at Josh's house.
But this is always just an interesting sheet to look at and see if we did A, B, C, or D, what's the impact on different properties.
I use the legged stool analogy also with that, but that leg of the stool did get a little thinner, but the other legs sure seem to go up.
Yeah.
And valuations on both of them properties went up, correct?
Well, I presume, well, let's see, the value 22 to 23 went up 15,800 for JJ and 1,200 for Josh. Taxable market value.
So even with increases, still went down.
Right, just those increases are smaller than what people saw on their houses.
Their house, and especially if you own if you own a house, that's gonna go up, it's inevitable. Yeah. If you have thoughts, now is the time. Otherwise, we're gonna let staff do their magic. And we'll see how close we get by the end of the next meeting. I'm kind of thinking we might almost wanna think we're gonna have that extra meeting. But stranger things have happened.
Well, I think we should look at the ARPA funds are and see what we can get on the placeholders we have there. Cause there's some growth in there too.
Growth.
I mean, adding new things in the county. And I know we want to support some, but at the level of support could be changed.
That's a question. What percentage of the budget was for wages?
Well,
Good, Dave's got my presentation there, the number's in there.
Should I give it to you, Kelly, to find?
It was from a couple board meetings ago.
And 80 people.
It's
a
lot.
So of the about 50 million budget in 2022, 25.7 million was wages. Right,
but
That's just wages.
we levy 20 million out of that $53 million budget. So we get 60% of our budget from the state and federal government. So when the state says we're not gonna fund probation, for instance, at the level we agreed to in 1996, and we're only gonna send you half the money, that's, if you add all of our probation, that's a whole agent's wage.
I get that. We see that at the township level too.
Yep. So you go through the list of everything that they have agreed to, and they're not funding it at the level that we would not have a gap in our budget this year. But we do, and we have to solve it. We can whine all we want, but we have to solve it.
So Kelly, was that just wages or did that include?
That's wages and benefits.
Okay, so that, okay.
This, I just pulled up a slide from last year's Truth and Taxation meeting where we put 80% of all the expenditures fit easily on one slide. It's salaries and benefits, road and bridge construction. So for 2022, that was 9.2 million. For this year, it's like 2 million, 2.5 million more than that.
Right.
So that's just construction. That's not salaries, benefits and highway. Out of home placements are $1 million+. Debt is $2.25 million. Vehicle purchases are 670,000. Medical services to prisoners, it's on here for 415, but we know Rod's presented that number is going up. I don't know what the number is, but it's, pushing $500,000. And then the library appropriation is 360.
Yeah, up, yeah.
So those are that's 80% of all the money is right there.
And our insurance,
The
insurance is
road-
3.7 million.
The road and bridge is really dependent on how much money we get from the state and federal government, basically. If they pay on the formula that they say they're gonna pay at, then we can do 11 or $12 million worth of construction.
Yeah, but it's just when you say that $53 million budget and
Right.
12 or 13 is construction that's funded by the state. Those aren't cuts that you would make, right?
Right.
So
No.
we're really trying to balance a $53 million budget on a pretty narrow slice of expenditures. I mean,
Right.
it's no different than if you look at the federal government and they show all of the entitlement funds and then they show everything else. Everything else is a pretty small slice of the budget. And because we are a creature of the state, who is required to do certain things, it's less fun than you'd think it would be. But I think I think a two-legged stool, right, without doing the detail, that includes a zero levy probably is going to cut staff at the level that would cause concern to some, or would redirect ARPA money beyond which is probably sustainable, right? Because so much of that ARPA money it's like the 4-H program that we're spending to ramp up the 4-H program to those non-traditional communities. Well, we could take that money, but then you're not doing your program, which we wouldn't be doing the program if you didn't support the program. So.
I think,
All right.
We gotta figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
we'll figure it out. We always do. We're gonna take a 2-minute break.
Okay, we're at commission.
So what is the library board's position?
An ad hoc committee that we had so far, and I'm the only one that voted to.
Really?
Because they're throwing out that we can't because of the First Amendment, that we're opening ourselves up for lawsuit discretion.
Is there something in the library? I'm not real familiar with how that works.
Yeah.
Like, is it an age limit?
Well, so the problem is that you're supposed to have you've got this is like for 10 years,
Yeah.
which is still too much for 10-year-olds.
I-
But they put it in.
13-year-old.
I know, and it's like, yeah, no, it's like, okay, so you can get pregnant having sex, so have anal sex instead.
Yeah.
No, not happening. So.
Rosie says that you want to be with. one
Oh,
of the-
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, don't.
I can't touch it. Come on, Bobby.
I don't too. And you-
No, yeah.
so, I will let Peter guess your Chaffey. and,
Well-
the police station. I still work for them.
Oh, are you?
I wanted to be in real charge.
Okay,
I'm going home Thursday and Friday.
okay. Yeah, I do.
Tracy, when did you get back?
Yeah, yep.
Oh my gosh, you're dedicated, man. You'll be tired. of-
Anyway, so they put it in the library, well, where the 10-year-olds is in the little kids section. So it's in with all the little kids. So what happened is in North Branch, they had it displayed, where it's like, here you are.
Are you going back?
Are
you going back?
This is 2014.
No, to Italy or.
So that's where the issue is that they don't have enough room to.
I
move.
haven't been there, no, not Italy, but
So
it's
the
on
lady that
zero.
requested to have it moved to the adult section.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, I don't know.
And they have an adult section.
They do, but everybody said no. So they're looking at alternatives. Well, I'm wondering if we went back, so with all you're using that.
You do reach a saturation point.
Yeah.
Unless somebody requests it, then they can, get it that way, because obviously we're putting it in. But,
No vacation for Mark.
we don't want that.
No overseas vacation for Mark.
Okay. Commissioner updates, law library.
Okay, yeah, we had a meeting. There really wasn't a lot going on. We just reviewed the financials. The biggest action item was all the old materials the jail used to take. And specifically Brent Johns would take it. We had no idea what he did with it, but with his retiring, she's like, I don't know what to do with it all. So I just said, get a hold of Rob, figure out what he did with them, whether or not it got thrown away or if they use it in the jail or what. But obviously if they use it in the jail, we'd like it to go there. If it has to be just disposed of, just get a hold of whoever to dispose of. But that was our most pressing action. I think it was 12 minutes long or something. Was it 10, 12? Did we set a new record?
I think we set a new record. Yeah, it was, that's the way I like meetings.
Snake River watershed.
Snake River Watershed took a whole new level. So there's a huge power trip going on with the Snake River Watershed. And so Steve and Caleb and David and I met after that meeting to discuss what to do. We've got a couple county commissioners that hired an attorney to come in and talk to us about a better way to do it that he thought. And it's what they're trying to do is get it so that the county commissioners have all of the power, but the county commissioners don't know the projects. We don't know how to do them right. I mean, that's not our specialties. So Pine County is in support of having Soil and Water still be active and to be on the board and to work it out so that it's not just the county commissioners, but that we bring the people that know what they're doing into the.
Wouldn't it delay the work? too?
Yeah.
You have to wait for a board meeting to approve things?
Yeah, it would. It would.
So they want to cut out soil and water?
On the decision-making stuff, yeah.
Isn't that law?
Well, that's one of the questions is, Bowser is saying that they want them to be active and it's still waiting to see what Bowser actually says that yes, they have to be. But Pine County is in support of having them be active in that committee.
And Mr. Chair and Commissioner Heffernan, just maybe to give a little more background, and Caleb, I might have to rely on you because I know there's 3 specific powers that were raised, one of being levy authority, one of being ordinance adoption, and then I always forget the third one. I think.
Eminent domain?
Oh, eminent domain, yes, thank you. And so in reality, those are 3 powers that the current Snake River Watershed Management Board does not have. And those are 3 powers that I can't imagine any of the 4 counties would actually delegate to that board, no matter who was on it, whether it was only commissioners or whether it was commissioners and SWCD representatives. So I think Terry summed it up well by saying it's just a power issue, right? Because it's not in practical terms, there's no authority that the board could exercise, that the board would exercise that it can't with SWCD representatives as members. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's hold strong, Terry, because I think that's the intent of the law. I think it's what's working around the state and the other one watershed, one plan organizations, and they're working. They're getting stuff done.
And I appreciate having Caleb there because even just watching his facial expressions tells me if I'm doing it right or wrong. So, yeah. So it is, it's good having that support in the room and, yeah, it's a struggle right now. They're really struggling with where to go with that. So.
What counties are the ones?
Natick and Mille Lacs. More so Natick, I think.
Craig and
Yeah.
Well, keep us updated.
Okay.
It's one of those things, we're in a group that's deciding what it's gonna be. And so we're kind of in that never never land, and if you get outvoted 3-1, you get outvoted, but we're still gonna be involved because a large part of the Snake River watershed goes through Pine County.
Right. Yep. Yep.
Thanks. East Central Regional Development Commission, I filled in for JJ on that, and it was kind of fun to see the old group again. Many people are still there, a lot of new faces, but it was kind of business as I remembered it. There are some grants that are always available for safe routes to school, and we've taken advantage of some of those throughout the years that are in Hinckley and Pine City and I believe also at Sandstone. So they're not huge grants, but they help. Every bit helps. NLX was canceled. Pine County HRA and Economic Development Authority.
I'll take that, Mr. Chair. We had our meeting on August 24th. It was basically a general, pretty much a general meeting this time, but I would like to highlight 3 parts of it.
Yeah,
just quickly. The new management company is doing a great job, and the 2 facilities, the utility bills come in like separate. See, they write checks, so they're trying to work with a electric company, et cetera, so you can show us a readout for each apartment, but just send us one bill. They're trying to get through that kind of the minutia of that, which would streamline that business, which I think is good work. And then Leslie presented to the board advertising that can happen through web-based through Pine County and information flow. So they're looking at that, like the costs and which way to go. And then the other, a big discussion was with the board afterwards was we're going to be meeting with them after their annual meeting in October. And we're going to sit down as a board with that board and kind of make sure we're all on the same page. So if you want to think about that stuff, it's going to happen in October. And that's all I really have. I don't know if you want to add anything, Dave, or.
We'll move on to the Chaffey conference room dedication. Josh and I were there and a lot of staff members, workers here. It was a really good day. And thanks, Debbie, for finding the big scissors, and Terry donated a set.
I heard a lot of feedback. We were gone. I was in Rochester,
Okay.
so I missed it, but I heard feedback from the people I ran into that it was awesome.
Yeah, it was
Very touching.
the family was very touched, and so it was good to remember Steve and then the work he'd done here. Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe meeting. Terry, you want to take that?
It was good. It's always good to meet with them. We talked about the 4-H thing that's coming up where I got the invitation from Jan to join them. So we'll be doing that to see where we can go with that. We talked about just different programming that they're doing and the relationship that we have with them and how much more we can get done. We did talk to them about possibly increasing their contribution to the county to help out our attorney's office. What else we talked about? We talked.
We did talk about fee to trust land
Yes.
possibly.
Yes, thank you.
You know, we know that they have some land that has housing on it that probably makes sense. It's all native housing and so. I think they've been very deliberate about that and they've been very deliberate about including us in their plans. So I don't know that we can ask for, we aren't the deciders in it anyway. So.
Oh, we also talked about their new project and hoping to meet with their economic development and their Blacks Ventures, corporate ventures at the next meeting to find out where they're at with the new things that they're establishing in Hinckley. So they're looking at putting in a bigger commercial business and some housing that would be for the workforce. So it wouldn't be necessarily band member housing, but workforce housing for the community. So.
The city, the county, the schools in Pine City and Pine Tech met last week. Josh, you want to give a report on that?
Yeah, we had a guy from Deed give us like an economic outlook on the county. Yeah, I thought it was great. I love them presentations. It's very interesting. Pine County was about one of the worst. We lost jobs. And it was interesting to me because everybody's looking for employment or everybody's looking to hire. But we lost, what was it, 1,200 or 800 or something? It was.
We lost 933 jobs.
Yeah.
Is the number that I think that is sticking in my head. And to spin that, I mean, I think the positive spin that he gave was we have an overall out migration of workers. So more people who live here and commute out of the county than live here and work here. And that may be the growth area because we don't have a lot of people who are looking for work who live here. So
the growth area that we know has grown, but they don't have good statistical information is how many people moved here and work from home. And because they happen to have a home where they have good internet and so they can do that. And we know anecdotally, that number might be quite high. We all run into people that's what they're doing. We can't say there are 1,000 people doing that or whatever, but most of those jobs that were lost in the service industry. And we know that many of them were lost east of Hinckley in that whole complex of the casino and the hotels, that whole business took a huge hit during COVID, struggling to come back.
On the same note, Mr. Chair, we have a lot of people that don't live here, but commute here to work.
But not that we do have those people, but that number is far outweighed by the number of people that live here and commute out of the county.
It's still a big number. There's teachers, there's people who work at the FCI, there's a lot of people.
A couple other things I took away, and we had a little side conversation about the youth or younger. He said the numbers of people entering the workforce is way higher than it ever has been, or it's trending up, which is very exciting. And the older people are out or leaving, which we knew that. But he said one of the things that you will notice going forward here, and sorry for anybody that's retired, but with inflation, a lot of them might come back in because they can't afford it and they need to find a part-time job or whatever. But that is part of the thing he said you'll notice in the workforce, because most of them left, but now things are getting more expensive. than they can afford. So
Mhm.
I don't know, maybe we'll start seeing, I know I just had someone in my store this morning, a young kid that typically you would hardly have anybody apply at that age, and I've got a whole stack of them. Just they all can only work after school and I need them. So, after school, I'm surprised, maybe out there just open later, but yeah, no, so that was exciting because everybody always talks about the younger generation not wanting to work, and they do, and they are right now.
That's awesome.
I've heard that from 2 restaurant owners.
Mhm.
The kids are very ambitious.
Mhm.
That's good
They'll
to
pick up
hear.
any shift they can. Central Minnesota Council on Aging, we met last week and, you know, they're having that same issue with workforce. As we have aged, so have the people that are the caregivers. And so they're having an awful time finding people to be chore givers, caregivers, those kind of things that elderly people need to have done if they're gonna stay in their own home. There also have noticed a drop in the volunteers because they've aged out. Some people can't drive anymore, and they were the people that were delivering Meals on Wheels. And so that new generation of retirees hasn't figured it out yet, or have other things going on. And so they're working through that, and they're having some success, but there is some grants available, and I'll pass this on to Sam because it might fit into some of her programs, but there's some grants for that aging population. There are some grant money available. AMC Community Supervision Work Group.
So Commissioner Ludwig is appointed to that, but he had to miss the first meeting, and I know Terry was able to go to that, so I don't know if you.
You have anything you want to say, Terry?
That's Terry.
Well, that.
Terry Fawcett.
I was wondering how you got to that.
When?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Yeah, well, wasn't there for the entire meeting, but the general overview. First off, it's chaired by Commissioner Swanson from Roseville County, so I think that's the exact person to lead that group. Introductions were done. There's a couple MACAC reps. So the director of Hennepin County and the director of Kandiyohi County represent them. MACPO is represented by our current president from Otter Tail County and our past president from Itasca County. Commissioners from Pine, Scott, and Otter Tail County, I believe, are on that group. Carly Stark represents AMC, and Julie Ring, of course, was there, as well as AMC project manager Matt Cook. A lot of what was done at that meeting was rehashing what wasn't accomplished this last year with CSG. So,
Story, right?
pardon me?
It's always the same story.
Yeah, it's, you know, if there's any frustration is when you have a new work group, then you bring everybody up to speed on the work that's been done, and that takes another several meetings to do that. So that was the big piece of that. Talked about the scope and the charge of the work group, the structure, the expectations of the members, and then most importantly, the timeline, the phases of the work. So I believe that the next meeting, they're going to introduce tribal representatives. The next meeting will be by Zoom. And then after that, I think they're going to go back to in person for the rest of the meetings. I believe that the goal is to have a product to the legislature by January. And I believe they all thought that that was going to be extremely difficult.
Product for funding.
Correct. Yes, yeah. Everybody, if there's any consolation, everybody around the table is equally as frustrated. But, you know, talking to some colleagues of mine over the weekend, I think if there's, you know, maybe I'm really naive, but I think when AMC leads this effort, legislators have to listen because you can't ignore AMC. And so that's where I think the beauty is with AMC taking charge of this now and then specifically having Commissioner Swanson lead the effort. So I think hopefully it's a good product, but it's all yours now. I'm done.
I know I can make one more than me.
Happy to fill in if you can't make one. So they did have a name tag. for me.
The weird thing to me is they created the funding bubble. And they haven't funded it full since 1996.
Yeah, well,
They would just fund it at their level, we wouldn't be here.
I should say this, the Department of Corrections is represented at the table too, but they make it very clear at the outset of that meeting that the DOC is there to talk about delivery system conversations only, and they will not engage in any formula conversation because their budget is their budget. So. And the commissioner wasn't there. They had a regional director, their regional supervisor.
Mr. Chair.
Mhm.
So then this group, taking that to heart, could come out with a recommendation that was a harder formula for splitting the allocation and maybe capturing the allocation, because my understanding is the way it currently is, DOC has some discretion as to how much of their total appropriation goes to the various delivery methods.
Correct.
Right? So is the task force understands this, that if DOC, to get DOC to do better, there may need to be a law change where the legislature actually appropriates this amount of money for distribution to this delivery system.
Correct.
But I don't, any delivery system isn't getting enough money, I don't think.
And that was said as well, including the Department of Corrections. So there's two issues. Community Corrections isn't funded at the level it needs to be, but the Department of Corrections is underfunded as well. And so it's truly a bigger issue than just the delivery system issue. You could come up with a new formula and everybody still could be underfunded. And so that has to be addressed.
Do you think the state cares that there's different delivery systems? Does that bog it down at all?
It's a tough one to answer. I think they're always confused when we have the conversation with legislators. I've been on too many testimonies where half of your allotted time is re-explaining to legislators why we have three different delivery systems.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest frustration. We worked with CSG for 8-9 months. And then we had Corrections Capital Day, and some of those main players, including Mariani, were at Capital Day and had no idea that we were even meeting with CSG for 9 months when it had already been approved by the governor, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Many signatures we had to get, and then you get there in front of the legislators on Capitol Day and they have no idea what you're talking about.
I don't have any idea what CSP is.
Council on State Governments.
Okay.
So they're like a national nonprofit that works with states to try to do a better job of running things, is the easiest way to say it.
So there was a legislative directed, governor approved process using this consultant, CSG.
Correct.
And at the end of the day, there was no substantive recommendations that were implemented. And it sounds like many of the key players didn't even know the group was meeting. So that's a policy fail.
And then some of those players that were on the Public Safety Committee have now since retired.
But to me, it highlights the importance of those conversations with our legislators and with the committee chairs and vice chairs and ranking members.
The problem, maybe I oversimplify this, Terry, but we can talk to our legislators till blue in the face, and they understand that gap. Yeah, we're gonna do something about it. Even if they give Department of Corrections more money, like David said, then they've got a whole bucket full of stuff that they should have been funding at a better level before, and then this program gets a pittance or nothing. I mean, we've gone backwards since we've been explaining this thing.
Yeah, they're the ones deciding what we get,
Right,
not the legislature.
right.
So they have to, the commitment has to be, this amount goes to the.
But they
county.
have to get enough money so they can divvy it up. I mean, the only reason we're getting 26% is because they don't have, they have to prorate it because they don't have enough money to fund it at 100%.
I think you're partially correct. I think they do have some money that when I came here 7.5 years ago, one of the first meetings I ever went to, their accountant for the DOC was asked to come to that table and explain how they do their budgeting. They have never showed us their numbers. So we believe that there is some monies in their budget that just doesn't get to us anyway, which is why the community corrections folks sometimes just would like the DOC to believe, or to have the DOC to consider, maybe you should just be in the prison business, because they do very little overall percentage of community corrections work. So just get into the prison business and handle all the probation and parole stuff to the counties and then divide them budgets, you know, because right now, and I think I said this in the budget committee meeting when I gave my presentation, is some optics look really bad when we don't get a nickel, and the commissioner of corrections is out there advertising for $10,000 signing bonuses for prison guards at Rush City, Oak Park Heights, and Stillwater. Now I say that and also say that I know that the prisons are underfunded and they don't have enough staff. This isn't community corrections against the prison, but it looks bad, right? When we don't get a nickel, and then where do you get that $10,000 per person? That's coming from somewhere, right? So.
Location.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. Thank you, Terry.
Under other,
I have
Mary?
others. I have more others. So I'm gonna do
Okay.
the easy ones first because I
Okay.
think that the book is gonna take a little bit more. So
Yep.
Shack.
Yep.
We did have a Shack meeting in Debbie. Hopefully we'll get that schedule set up so that it's the way it should be, so it doesn't mess you up. I'm sorry. One of the big topics for Shack was how do we get public trust again? Because with the COVID incident and all the things that happened with COVID and the information that was given and then pulled back and just everything, they don't know if we will ever in public health be able to get that trust level back that we had prior to the pandemic. So that's one thing. If you guys have any ideas on that, or we've got a conference coming up in October over in St. Cloud, and that's one of the things I think that's going to be talked about. So if you have any ideas on, just how to go about doing that, that would be good to hear. But that was a big part of that. I did an NACO membership call, and they were talking about the Inflation Reduction Act. They've got a big thing on drug pricing, and they're using Medicare people to figure out what drugs are used the most and how to get that done. And it's based on the highest Medicare drugs. One of the things that they have is a lot of grants that are out there. And the thing that hit me in the middle of that meeting is, wow, what would happen if we put solar panels on top of our roof here? Would it pay our electric bills, or would it be beneficial with all the grants that are out there? So just a thought process that came with that. And then the library. So thank you to you guys for being here. And if you want to pass that on, I am on the ad hoc committee for that committee or for the library board that read the book and went through it and then met together to determine whether or not it should. What happens is if somebody doesn't believe that a book belongs in the library system, they take it to the media purchaser and they look at it and see if it meets all of the criteria. And if it does, then she says, no, it meets the criteria, we need to keep it. And then it goes to the director of the library, and she looks at it and says, does it meet the criteria? And yes, it met all the criteria. So and the question was, is it in the section where it belongs? She determined that according to what they were given for the criteria, that it did belong in the section, or that is in the section where it belongs. So then it goes to the board, the whole board, and the whole board looks at it, and they did an ad hoc committee. So I was part of that ad hoc committee. So I have read the whole book. one of the things that was brought up was that the only reason it's not allowed in our jails is, or it doesn't go to our jails is because we don't have 10-year-olds in our jails. So I did send the book home with Jeff and he reviewed it and it would not be allowed in our jail system because of the pictures that are in there, which was very good to hear. And I brought that up in the ad hoc committee. There were, let's see, there's 8 to 9 of us, I think, on the ad hoc committee. And I was the only one that voted to have the book moved to the adult section, which is what the person that was, pardon? Yeah, the person that took this to the committee, that's what they asked. They didn't have it, they didn't ask to have it put in any place other than to have it put in the adult section. Now, everybody's seen the book. The question that's coming out, and I think that the reason that so many people voted to leave it where it was is because they're saying that it's against the First Amendment to move that book. And that we're opening ourselves up for lawsuits.
If you decide to age.
Yeah.
Appropriation only, it can stay in the library.
Yeah.
That's not
So-
banning anything.
Right, right. And there were a lot of people, unfortunately, the majority of the people that sent letters or that were at the meetings were the people that spoke for leaving the book exactly where it was. So, you know, it started with a group of people that were against it and wanted to have it moved, and then it built and it came the other direction. Reese is going to be checking into the First Amendment section for me. And we'll see where that goes. Next Monday at 9:30 in Cambridge is the meeting where it's going to be decided what's going to happen with this book. And that's where the whole board will be able to, but they'll probably take the ad hoc committee's recommendation. So thinking more about it and what our options are with this, one of the things is that we don't have a lot of people that volunteer. We were talking about volunteers that volunteer in the library system. Maybe if we get more volunteers that can help their librarians say, you know, let's maybe move this to this area, or let's do something a little bit more with it here, where it's got to, I believe it has to be in that section, but make it so that it's less visible in that section. That's an opportunity or an option. The other thing is we can have books ordered. So if we find books, if you go to like Focus on the Family or Christian Book Distributors, or talk to Dave and find out different books that some homeschoolers are using and find out better resources that are out there for our kids, and request to have them purchased. You know, we have an option of what goes in the library with what we order to go into the library system. So that's another option. One option that I have for this board, and I don't even know if, I just thought, I was thinking about this morning. Could we as a board ask to not have this type of book put into our Pine County libraries? I mean, it's still in the library system and people can still request a book and have it sent to the library for pickup. But would it be feasible for this board to say, you know, we don't want it in our libraries?
I'm just gonna interject something here. You can ask not to have it put there, but it can be moved from one library to the next.
Right.
But you would restrict all of those.
Well, if we ask for it not to be in our library system, then it wouldn't be in there. But if I wanted to read this with my kids, then I could order the book and it would be sent to the library and then I would go for pickup.
So you're talking about adult ordering that as opposed to a child picking out, because it says it's for 10 years old and up.
I know.
I mean, a 10-year-old wouldn't understand the language in there.
So what came out of it, Gussie, is I've read the book, you know, being on the committee, I read the whole book, and there's a lot of really good materials for parents to use with their kids. The one thing that they brought up was that there was a 10-year-old that checked it out, and they said it was a 10-year-old little girl. And she went to her mom and said, can I check this book out? And her mom said yes. And she said, they were reading it together, which is the way it should be read. And the little girl said, well, this is what dad's doing to me. And so they said it's helping kids to be able to say things too. So, I mean, that's one of the things that was said in that meeting. So, I mean, that's kind of where the push was coming from. But I guess my thing is there's no way that my grandsons would be able to look at that book and, you know, I don't believe it's in the right place. So I don't know if that's something that we can request.
I don't know, Terry. That'd be a library board. I don't know.
I think it would have to come from this board if we wanted to do that. The other issue is if we defund. So a lot of people are saying, well, let's defund it. We're not going to fund this book, but we can't pick a book that we're not going to defund. And if we say we're going to keep 10,000 from the library system because we don't like the books that they have. What they're gonna do is they're gonna shut down parts of our libraries. So then we're not gonna have library access for the people that need it. Mille Lacs County did that last year where they didn't have the money to pay the library, so they ended up doing some cuts on their funding. And they pulled one of their resources from the library because they didn't pay for that resource. And I don't think that's for anybody. It's other people that have called me, that's not where they want to go with this. They don't want to defund the library. They just don't want the books. So trying to think outside the box, I think that's what I've come up with is if we as a board could say, we don't want these books in Pine County's libraries unless they're ordered by a family.
I don't know, Terry, I don't know if that violates somebody's. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
Me, this,
And I could talk about my mother-in-law because she's not alive anymore, but she used to be the Hinckley librarian for years. And she'd get those books and she'd say, yeah, this is garbage. And she'd put it in the back room and never put it out on the shelves, you know, which I don't know if she would get away with that at this point in time, but you know, I don't know what options, I don't know.
If you look at the legislative.
Just wait, Jesse. That. Reason if you're in a board like we are at the library.
So we have a joint powers agreement
Right.
with the library. In the library or in that joint powers, this board has delegated to that library board the authority in the library statutes, whatever those statutes are. It says we give you this authority to exercise on our behalf, and we get 3 members, of which one is Terry, and then there's 2 citizen members. And so I would presume that easily within that structure, you give direction to your representative, whether it's Terry or your citizens, that say, this is what we would like to see. We want more open hours. We want more books on science. We want the library more involved in the, whatever, you know, whatever it is. And then Terry and the other representatives would bring those things back, right? So it seems that you certainly should be able to give preferences to Terry. Whether you can compel, that's a much harder and complicated.
I think
piece.
that's where I was going. I mean, we can tell Terry to make a suggestion, but I don't think we can expect that's because they're gonna have to decide as a library. Then we have 2 other members from this county on that board.
how strong was the pushback during the initial presentation to the library?
What do you mean?
Bringing this up, and when they said, well, it's age appropriate, when they were going through the process of determining that. Who was it, one person brought it forward or one?
So one lady had taken, it started, I think we're into our 6 months. So one lady had taken it to she started the process of going to the curriculum director, and then she went to the director, and then she dropped it. And so it didn't really go anywhere for over almost 2 months, I want to say.
It seems to me at that board level, the easiest thing to say, we'll have it here, but then it's request only in every library. So an adult can be part of it or something.
Yeah.
But have it available, but just not.
The other issue with libraries is that they don't have a lot of shelving, they don't have a lot of room. So when you put it in the age appropriate 10 section, it's probably in the age appropriate 5 section because they're all mingled together. So that's another issue that we've got is that book, you know, they say that it's appropriate for the age of 10, but it's really out there for 5-year-olds or maybe under. And it's, if you looked at it, it's a lot of pictures. So it looks like a picture book, which gets kids' attention.
The language is way above that age level.
It is. It is.
Thing, Terry. Is there one in every branch library?
There will be now because the ad hoc committee had all those people on it and they had the order. There were only 2.
Mouth shut, they might have only had one in the library.
Right, so this is a book that's been on the shelves since 2014, so it's been on the shelves for a long time. And the East Central Regional Library owned 2 copies, and I think now they've got probably 12, so. Yeah.
I've been looking for a book.
Sometimes that's a real. How strong
Strong
you
ship that went down World War II, and there's only one copy or two copies in the regional library. As the order went out of. Some of those books, because of circulation, they just don't have a copy.
Well, and East Central did have two copies. But now they have more. So I need this board's direction on where you want to go. We meet next Monday. And that's where the decision's gonna be given, so.
I think by virtue of the fact that you represent this board, you have the authority to make your own decision.
No, I want to be able to go there and say our board said, because I think that, and I look at Don from up in Aiken, and that's what he was talking about. He said, I represent a board and I talked to the whole board about this and this is where we're at. But then they threw the First Amendment in there and so he voted. I mean, they were against having it there until they threw the First Amendment and then he was going to do some more checking, but he did vote. Yes.
So are we? I don't know about, because it seems like the First Amendment trumps everything and we don't. I mean, it does, no matter what I think about that book. I wouldn't have that book at home on my shelf, but that's me.
Yeah.
Well,
and that's where I was at. So if you've got the First Amendment and you can't work your way around that First Amendment, so yes, the book is going to be in the library system and it can be in that shelves. But if we say we'd we'd rather not have that book in our county unless it's requested, how does that work with the First Amendment? That's a reason, I think.
looking at you, Reese. I don't know.
Can I just tell you guys that statute is under revision right now by the state. It has been in place since 1970. And it didn't pass through this year. They made some revisions. It had revisions in 1986, I believe, and it's always had ability has always been there to be able to put those in libraries, and they're cutting a few places out right now with the changes that they've made this year, but it didn't pass this year, didn't go back to committee, went back to committee, didn't come back out. So I think an overhaul of that whole statute isn't necessary, but I don't know where you could go and be. I think you can be legal by not allowing it in your library with if you have enough people behind that. The squeaky wheel always seems to get the oil, and I think knowing what is out there, what's happening, what this is. I mean, there are probably 100 other books in the library. I'm just gonna say that now, probably 100 other books in the library that we'd be offended by. But this has been under scrutiny now in by Sandy County since May.
They're in East Central, so they're part of our library system.
They're what?
Isanti is part of our.
They're part of
Yes,
the
yeah.
East Central Regional Library.
Yeah.
But
So, and
let's
that's where
get
this
back
whole
to
thing
the
started.
board discussion here.
So
I-
Reese,
I-
what is your understanding with the First Amendment? Would this asking to not have it put into our libraries, would that create issues or?
Possibly. I mean, I'll have to do some more research on it and get back to you this week on it. But, my initial impression is that, First Amendment usually deals with content, but there's usually no restrictions on like time and place limits type thing. So maybe if it's moved from one section to another, I don't see how that's violating the First Amendment.
And that's where the attorney that they went through MCIT and got an attorney that could give them information on that. And that's what he said, is that we can't, if we move it, we're opening ourselves up for lawsuits because of the First Amendment. So, yeah.
It still would be in the library system.
Right. And you would still have access to it.
The other question I have, Terry, is, and does this become
I hope not. This has been a long year.
But you see where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
Somebody says, I don't think that book is appropriate. Or
Yeah.
then we'll come back and we'll say, well, yeah, you're right. It doesn't, we don't want that in our library. And we'll have this. Is that where this is going?
I believe it probably is. And that's one of the other concerns is if we say, okay, we're gonna move this, how many other people are gonna come forward with other books that they want to have moved?
Right.
And is it gonna be continual? So, that's one of the other things that they brought up, which is where you kind of take it back to the source of, okay, so let's do some research on books that we want in our library system and get those ordered and start filling the library system with the books. And there's two sides, there's the people that think that it's right where it belongs. And there's the people that think that it doesn't. So, no matter what, you're dealing with two totally different sides of this coin there. So.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Who determines what age level it is?
Yeah.
The author.
So you can just put whatever you want and say,
Yeah.
this is good for 10 years.
And this is like their third book, I think. She's got one this is her fourth.
2021 is the fourth.
Well, her renewal of this book, but there's,
revision of.
right, but she's got a book that's out there for like toddlers, and then she's got another one that's out there for up to, I think, 10-year-olds and,
Has one.
yeah.
Back here. There's one called It's Not the Store.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
keep it generic to this.
So yeah, that's where the question goes is how far.
Mhm. Well, I guess I would, I don't know. I would say that obviously I don't see anybody on this board that supports it that way, but if you just convey that and if there is some discretion we could put on it in our libraries, just to say, hey, it's gotta be checked out by whatever. I don't know what next.
My question, Terry, do you think that if you have a meeting next Monday, is it a done deal then?
This book, I believe so, yeah. This is, yes. I hope. No. This is-
You'll get a chance to express what happened here today.
Right. Yeah,
And then our board discussion too.
yes.
Can we make a motion to cut the funding in the meantime and we don't have to talk about the book as much as just who's
The
No,
problem,
donating money
If
to
we
this?
cut funding, then what we're doing is cutting our libraries. And there's so many people that use our libraries that's not the right answer either.
Yeah, they would just cut something we need, like internet access or something, penalize us.
Well, no, what
Well,
they probably do is either close a library or
Shut it down
cut a
for
library.
dollars.
Yeah.
What do we give them? Can we, what's the dollar amount?
360,000.
$360.
No, it's like 360 in the
Is it
budget.
360?
But if we do that, JJ, we're saying we don't want a library in Pine County.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's what we're saying.
Still order it, right, Steve? So that they're not being left out. They can still order it, but that would take some wherewithal to know it's out there.
Yes, if we requested to not have that in our library system, they would still be able to order it. Mhm. And I've just ordered a couple books from them that I'm waiting for. It's easy to do it. It's not a challenge.
I do it all the time.
Yeah.
It's just, somebody else has it checked out. You gotta wait for it.
Yeah.
It's no big deal. Terry, I would rather have you say by a consensus and Pine County. Have that book on our shelf. in Pine County. Yep.
I didn't hear that. Was that a request not to have it on your shelf?
Yes.
Have it behind the desk or something, if someone speaks for it. Or ask up here. That way, it's there, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
If I could just clarify some information for the record in case the newspaper is taking notes. The budget for 2023 that's in right now is the appropriation for the library is $355,701. right? So that's not, you've not made that a final decision. That's what the appropriation request is in the preliminary budget. The state also has a minimum funding required, maintenance of effort.
Yeah.
That amount is $256,664. So if you were to fund at that amount or higher, but not the full request, the joint powers agreement would have the library, in essence, cutting hours and cutting services until they get it to balance. Right, and those decisions are really their discretion, to say, based on the amount of money you're appropriating, this is the amount of service we can give you. Is that?
Yep. So when Mille Lacs did it last year, they had, I want to say, was it Onamia? And I may be wrong on that, but they had a library that was only open maybe 2 or 3 days a week, and they ended up cutting that library totally. And that had a lot of backlash because there were a lot of people that used that library during those days. So, I don't think cutting funding is necessarily even. The people that I've talked to, the people that have called, that's not what they want. They don't want the library to be closed or to have less of a library. They just don't want the book.
And I think we all recognize, even if we hate that book, we don't want that word censorship.
Right.
Say, I don't want somebody to decide that we shouldn't read anything about Adolf Hitler anymore. I think that's a stretch, I know, but it's
true.
It's true. And so that's why stuff that is objectionable to us personally ends up sometimes in a library. Is because we want to make sure when we want to read something about the Third Reich, it's there and we can.
Well, and there were parents that spoke, that actually, they check this book out and they use it to teach their kids, So I mean, it's used for the right purposes.
And we're saying that's fine.
Right.
You can check it out.
Yep.
We're just not, somebody can't accidentally pull it off the shelf. Other bits of information you have for us? Is that enough?
That's it.
Thank you, Terry. We've got a bunch of meetings coming up. Does anybody wish to take my place at the Central Minnesota Workforce meeting? It's a Zoom call on Friday Friday at 12:15. If you do, talk to me afterwards and I'll get you the link information. Hopefully I'm standing in a boat knee deep in walleyes, but
I'll do the meeting if you give me a walleye. No.
okay.
Just go on location. We'll do a traveling meeting.
Yeah, I don't think they even got power at that resort. So.
Even better.
Anyway, any other business come before the board?
I could quickly, we had mentioned this Wadena County letter. That was on our.
The what?
Wadena County letter.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't talk about that, but it's just that what I thought was interesting. If anyone else wanted to dig into it a little bit, if you look up at the top of the list with one of the counties that has the least amount of property tax on their housing, and they compare to a $250,000 house, which I think is more realistic, closer to realistic. One of the counties I would like to mention is Cass County, which is first, second, third, fourth. And the more that I dug into it, I see Cass County has got a lot of things similar to us, population, the area, land mass even. I mean, we always talk about our land mass, we're so big, but Cass County is actually even bigger than us. They have 2,021 square miles, or we're only 1,400. They're the fourth lowest tax in the state, but they have 41 officers out on the roads compared to, what are we, 20? Yeah, that's the license. He said licensed, armed. officers, and then inside they have 15 jailers, 16 dispatchers and administrative above and beyond. They have 40 in their highway department. They have 79 employees in human services union, 12 non-union. I mean, if a person just looks at that county, I know we always compare to our neighboring counties, but unfortunately our neighboring counties, the Mille Lacs, Carlton, Kennewick are on the bottom of the list as some of the highest taxes. But I know that was on our agenda, but I just wanted to bring up, if anyone here has time to dig into it a little more, really look at Cass County. I think a lot of things I think we could look at. So, tip.
We do know those folks quite well. Because we worked on them a lot with when we did our memorandum of understanding with the Mille Lacs band. I think their population, does it show their population?
Yeah, they're, and actually it's revised. They are 30,700, and on what was mailed to us showed 28,570. I had called and just did some updating of my own or what they have. It's a pretty good county to look at compared to where it does.
Do they give you their levy?
That is all on their 122 page administration link, budget information. Too much to scribble on mine, but yeah.
What's your population?
30,700.
And that's current.
Yes.
So this is 2014. Okay.
Any other business? Not. We'll declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you all.